listening to Inclusive AF with Jackye Clayton and Katee Van Horn.
Good morning, everyone. Happy whatever day you listen to this, Wednesday.
Right. Wednesday.
Just go with Wednesday. It works. This is Katee Van Horn.
And this is Jackye Clayton. And welcome to the Inclusive AF podcast.
Whoop, whoop. So Jackye, are you so excited that you get to see me in like 3 weeks?
You know, if I was any more excited, I'd be twins. I think about it every day.
Yeah. So for all of those, you all know we've been talking about WorkHuman on all of our socials. We've been talking about it on different podcasts, and we're again talking about it today with another guest and another speaker from WorkHuman. But I just want to reiterate that this is like our what would you call it? Like our Super Bowl of HR? Like what would you consider
Right.
it?
I was going to say, it's like our, Coachella.
Coachella. It's Coachella.
It's fully
Coachella,
like Coachella
for HR.
It's like Burning Man, but
no, no.
no,
we're not going down the Burning Man route. Sorry. Although now Coachella, all that makes me think about is the whole Scandival situation. So, which we have to get into at some point. Very important stuff going on in reality television right now. But alas, we have an awesome speaker or a guest with us today, and he's going to be speaking at the WorkHuman conference. So I'm going to turn it over to Enrique Rubiio. Enrique, welcome. Would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your podcast. And I am equally excited to be speaking at the Coachella of HR in San Diego. So I hope those of you who are tuning in and listening to this in our future, we're recording this, so you're in the future for us. I hope you join us in San Diego for the amazing WorkHuman Live conference. It's going to be, I think actually it's going to be my second or third in-person events since the pandemic started. And it's exciting. I've been putting so many things online, so many virtual events. And I'm like, I like doing this, but I also need a little bit of people, like just like, talk to a couple of people in person every now and then works, right? So anyway, thank you for inviting me. My name is Enrique Rubiio. I am the founder of a global learning community of HR people called Hacking HR. And we talk a lot about HR in the now, the future of HR, and the exciting possibilities and opportunities that we have ahead of us. So thank you both for inviting me.
Of course. So Enrique, before we go any further, I want, so for those of you who are just listening and not watching this on YouTube, Enrique has quite the collection of photos behind him on his Zoom background. Enrique, where are you sitting currently? Where are you right now in the world?
I live in what I consider to be the best place in the world, which is Flagstaff, Arizona. And to me, I have lived in so many different cities and different places, and I found the place for me. This is the most incredible city that I've ever experienced in my life. So for those of you who are tuning in, watching, or listening, we are about an hour and a half away from the Grand Canyon, actually an hour and 10 minutes if you go a little bit over the speed limit in the highway. And, an hour and 10, an hour and 15, we are just 40 minutes north from Sedona, a couple of hours and a half north from Phoenix. But this place is just incredible. So I found, I draw a lot of joy and happiness from the outdoor. And this place is designed for that. This place is to get you close to the out. We are in the outdoor. Flagstaff is in the largest ponderosa pine forest in the world. So it's an incredible place. Yeah.
Listen, I knew you weren't in Waco when you said the most wonderful place ever of all time. But I have to tell you, I lived in Tempe. And I remember being like, it's so hot. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think I can live here. And they're like, let's go to Flagstaff. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. It's like 10 minutes away or whatever. And then I was like, like this is happening. How is this happening in the same place? And
it is happening in the same place.
It is a wonderful place.
Yeah, Arizona is a world of contrasts, and
Yes.
if you go down to Phoenix in the summer, you can hit 120 degrees, even at 10 p.m. If you come to Flagstaff in the summer, days are 80 degrees, nights are 50 plus. So it's perfect. Weather-wise, it's not even humid, which I really despise, by the way. I don't despise a lot of things in life, but I despise humidity. And so I found happiness. And this is, actually part of our conversation, eventually, about people who are now working remotely and they found their most beloved places. And I fear that by removing them or forcing them to come back to an office, you're removing them from the place that gives them happiness. And when we talk about giving them happiness, we're talking about making them more healthy from a holistic perspective, physically, spiritually, mentally, and intellectually. We're taking them away from the places that give them energy and creativity. And that's quite a danger for workplaces. So if you're listening and you work in a workplace that is bringing people back to the office or forcing them back to the office, please think about this, because a lot of people move to other cities that they are really, really enjoying. So think about this. It's a high cost that you are going to be paying and a high price that you're forcing people to pay to force them back into a city where they don't want to be.
I love that, because I do love Waco, Texas. I make fun of Waco, Texas, for obvious reasons. But the thing is, like, I find my happy here. I also know that it's not a big major city and I have to visit and travel and go to various places. And it's like, no, I like it because it's calmer here.
Yeah.
I know the situations, and I also can appreciate, even though I'm in a small town, because I work remote for a company where a lot of people are in Seattle, like what's going on within my community, I can really focus because it doesn't impact my work. Like, you realize there's people that may not take a stance or don't help the community. They're afraid to have their opinion or their point of view known because it'll affect their business, the bottom line. And I've noticed that a lot too, where it's like, not only can I do that, but you're also helping those communities where people have moved to those communities. And when people ask me, I'm like, I don't work here, but I spend my money here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. That's an asset of having people and being able to find their happiness. I love that.
Yeah. And, it's in a world of basically chaos where, chaos is the normal now, not peace and, easygoing things. It's just a world of chaos. The more anchors you remove away from people's lives, the more unstable, the more disruptive you are on them. And for some people, those anchors are, work, their social connections at work. For some of them, their anchors is family. And for some people, an anchor is also the place where they live, the community in which they live. And when at the beginning of the pandemic, I remember a lot of people moving from New York or bigger cities, New York, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, to more rural states and towns like Arizona, Nevada, other places. And now they have found happiness in those places. If you remove them from there, you are removing an anchor from their lives. And therefore, you are impacting their mental health in ways that sometimes we can't even measure in the short term. We only see that in the long term. So I am hoping that this becomes a thinking point for business leaders who think that it's all about working from an office, or it's all about bringing people back to the office. That's the bottom line to me. So I'm hoping that we continue to have some level of flexibility, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's the piece that is so critical, because I think for myself included, and Jackye knows this, right now in Arizona, it's like beautiful weather in the morning. So the hiking has been happening left and right, which is amazing. We are getting to that point down in Phoenix, at least, where, when it's 80 degrees out, you can't really take the dogs out. And also the beautiful rattlesnakes are out to visit. So, you gotta keep an eye on things as you're hiking. But it has completely shifted just the way I'm actually getting work done, I feel like, because it is, I get to go in the mornings, kind of stretch your brain in that way. And as you said, just some of the most beautiful things that you're seeing. We've had a ton of rain here. I think so many folks have, where we're seeing these desert wildflowers and all of these other creatures that we just don't normally see because it is actually green out, and which is awesome. But I think, having that in mind as a leader, what do you want to do and how do you want to impact your folks in a positive way? This is such a key piece to it. Enrique, what are you talking about at WorkHuman?
I'm going to talk about innovation. I'll be talking about innovation with some other HR leaders, and it's exciting. It's an exciting topic because, I've been talking about this for quite a while now with Hacking HR, and there's a point when you talk so much about something and you don't necessarily see it happening, that you're like, well, am I on the right track here, or do I give up because these things are not happening? When the pandemic started, with all the horrors of the pandemic and all the tragedy with lost lives and families impacted, and the financial impact of the pandemic, I try to see some of the gifts, right? Some of what we call silver lining, right? And part of that is that we gave ourselves permission in the workplace and in HR to be more open-minded, to ditch some of the paradigms and the orthodox about the way we were doing things. And we gave ourselves a little bit more permission to say, you know what? I don't have the answers, but what if we do this? What might happen if we do that? How about if we stayed open to these ideas? And that to me was very, very positive. And I fear, though, that we are being pulled back by the quote unquote normal, the pre-pandemic normal, which was not normal. It was actually very abnormal and it wasn't working for everybody. I fear that we're being pulled back to that. But that's why we continue in Hacking HR and WorkHuman Live and WorkHuman in general as an organization, but also a lot of people like both of you talking about doing things better and differently in HR. And that to me is exciting, and it's an exciting topic to be talking about innovation in HR. So that's a long answer to say I am talking about innovation in HR.
Well, I think it's so important when you think about, especially what you were saying about the silver lining. We can't go back to a place where we are ignoring people within human resources. Like, we have to be able to recognize the whole person. And I think we saw a lot of that through the pandemic, because you just didn't know what was going on personally, how it affected people's lifestyles, you got to meet and see things that you never wanted to, right? You found out somebody has a cat. You didn't know they had a cat. They have 2 cats and they have 3 kids and their husband is, right in the other room, and all these things that you usually, and it's like, look, I'm a whole person and I'm willing to make this work if you can meet me in that way. And I think that we're still learning to adjust through that pandemic. And then with all the financials that have been going on within the US, especially, figuring out what are we doing? Like, we have to sync all those things together in an innovative way. And I don't think we've figured out all of the impacts that we've had since 2020 and what that means to the overall organization, because we're still in the middle of chaos. We've never taken a breath. And so it's going to take some innovation of people who are being able to push through that. I'd love to hear what kind of things have you been seeing that are other things that you think are innovative in that way, things that people should consider without giving your whole thing away? Because
no, absolutely. Well, I think the perhaps it's not really innovation, it's more some level of awareness. I think the fact that now we're talking about things that we didn't give permission ourselves to talk about before the pandemic, that to me in itself, even if we're not yet taking action, which we are, but even if we're not taking action at the level and the magnitude and in the scope that we want, just talking about those things, to me, it's important. For example, it happened that in March of at the beginning of 2020, the pandemic overlapped with the murder of George Floyd. And then all the conversations about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which were important before the pandemic, and we talked a little bit about them before the pandemic, suddenly became really, really, really important. And we need to do more. I feel we're being pulled back by the old ways of just, being a check box, to be checked at work. And I'm hoping that we don't lose the traction that we gained out of that horrendous experience with the murder of George Floyd. But the fact that we're talking more now about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, that to me is part of the success of the adversity, if you will, that we've gone through over the past 3 years.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I want to tell you about my podcast called Can I Offer You Some Feedback? I'm a business consultant and executive coach with over 20 years experience in change management, leadership development, and naturally providing feedback to high performers. My podcast is for those of you who have a complicated relationship with feedback, whether giving, receiving, avoiding, or seeking. Feedback is essential for our development. In each episode, you'll hear from real people across industries with their ideas, perspectives, and best practices on feedback. I'll also be sharing business bites with you, simple explanations of organizational tools, management techniques, and leadership philosophies that will help you and your businesses thrive. You can listen to Can I Offer You Some Feedback on your favorite podcast app or learn more at evergreenpodcasts.com.
And now, when I say we need to do more, we also need to celebrate what we've done, because just talking about it, it's in itself a success. It's small. I know we need to do more, but we just by recognizing, hey, more people are talking about this than I think it happened in May when George Floyd was murdered, and pre-May of 2020. Just by talking about this, that's progress. Just by talking about it, but then you also add other things to that. For example, the fact, which is to me the one thing that is the closest to my heart about all things mental health, and I research shows it, data shows it, and we know that there is a pandemic on mental health, and we are not even seeing yet the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what's really going on with mental health at work and the implications for that in the short and the long term. But now we are talking more about this, right? And we are recognizing that work is certainly breaking people, even though we knew this before the pandemic. It's now that we say, all right, well, I'm finally giving it the proper value, so to speak, right? So to me, all things diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, culture, all things well-being, mental health are part of that innovation process that HR is going through and the workplace is going through. Yes, we still have to do a lot of work to be truly innovative about these areas, but the fact that we are talking and doing something about them, that to me is progress. And sometimes I'm like, well, we need to do more. We need to do more and faster. But I can't just let go of the fact that talking about these things matter, and the acknowledgement by people who were neither aware nor did they care before about these things. Just the fact that they are acknowledging how important they are, that to me is a reason to celebrate.
Could you imagine if we celebrated people and allowed them to heal and grow within organizations, and they're not passing workforce trauma onto their children? Yeah. Could you imagine a world like that? Seeing we're having examples and not seeing people who are doing that grind all the time and they're upset and I hate my job and whatever, and I never get to spend time with my kids and whatever. Could you imagine?
Yeah. But
Katie said no.
think about this, Jackye. Think about everything that defines what work is today. Let's think about it at pre-pandemic, right? Perhaps not so much now, but let's go back to 2019 or the beginning of 2020. Let's define everything that made work. Commuting to an office, which is already an awful experience for most people. Number two, sitting on your chair in your office all freaking day, which is one of the most destructive powers of work. Having people sitting all day, every day, going to meetings, totally unproductive, spending most of your time on meetings where that could have been an email, like the expression says, but at the same time we recognize that those meetings were not really as productive as they could have been. So that's other thing. Then asking people to fake it till they made it, right? meaning don't bring your whole self to work. We don't want your problems. We don't want your gaps. We don't want your weaknesses. We don't want the things that you don't know about. We want you to bring me solutions. The old saying of, the old, what I call all system thinkers, right? The people who are like, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. So, and I can go on and on with this list of things that defined work pre-pandemic. All of those things are destructive of the humans that come to work. They are harming to the humans that come to work. And I am thinking, what the heck did we do? I mean, how the heck did we get to this place where everything that defines work makes us, destroys us, breaks us as human beings? And that, on the one hand, gives me a little bit of anxiety because I'm thinking, well, people are being, broken with work. But at the same time, it gives me optimism that the world of possibilities is very large out there to improve, and to improve in literally every area, because every area, I think, and I believe, was broken at work before the pandemic. Not that it's fixed now, but at least we became more aware. So yes, to your comment, Jackye, yeah, what if we allowed people to address more of their mental, emotional health at work? What if we allowed them to unleash their talents and their potential at work? What if we told them, you are safe here? Come with your gaps, man. You know what? We're going to work it out together, because those gaps are an opportunity for you to grow, but an opportunity for us to acknowledge what we are missing, what we should be doing better, instead of telling them, oh, Jackye, don't bring that that gap to work, because that's not what we hired you for. We hired you because we thought you had the answers. You don't have the answers. Let's move on to the next person, and that is so damaging. So I am as aspiring and envisioning this, hopefully, becoming fixing some of these issues and turning work to what I think it is, which, in my view, work should be an outlet for the creative expression, for the potential of the person, right? And that can be done in tandem with achieving productivity, performance, and financial goals for this organization. I have never thought that the two are in contradiction with each other. Never. If you helped somebody realize their talents and their potentials and their creativity at work, believe me, you are going to be creating the conditions for that person to deliver higher productivity, higher performance, and therefore being better for the health of the organization. But just that thinking takes
You got me all fired up. I got to get off the call. I got to go back to work.
No, you need to go to his session at Work Human and learn.
Yes,
absolutely. Okay, I'll learn all the things. I'll do that first, and then I'll go.
Well, I think this also just goes to the community that you've developed within Hacking HR. Because I think that's the other piece. For those of you who have not listened to or joined any of the Hacking HR activities, I highly, highly encourage you to go. And the speakers that you have been able to curate are phenomenal. And they're experts in their fields. And I'm not just saying that because I'm one of them. I mean, I'm pretty awesome, but alas, that's not why I said that. But I just think it's such good folks that you've brought in that are thinking about these things in a different way and are kind of turning the whole concept, that very antiquated concept of HR, on its head to say, what can we do? How can we do it better? What can we do differently to really bring out the best in folks that they are able to do the best work of their lives, whether that's working on some Excel spreadsheets in finance or going out and coming up with a marketing plan, whatever it is that is their thing. Being able to develop that and grow that. And I love the whole idea of tell us your gaps and let's work on those. And also let's, develop those. Cause I think for so many people, it is, no, I don't want to tell anyone I don't know how to do this thing or that thing, cause that's scary. Yeah. And, being able to really kind of dig into that and learn, that's part of the human experience as well. And that's also how you retain folks, is by teaching them and giving them development opportunities. So I love that. So, who are you? Are you doing like a workshop, or is it just a panel? What are you actually doing?
We're doing a panel, and there are 4 other panelists in the panel.
Okay.
People can look them up on the website for Work Human Live. But yeah, all of the folks in the panel are also forward-thinking HR leaders who, I think on the one hand, they don't have the answers to everything, which is pretty, I think it's very positive to say, I don't have the answers for everything. We're figuring it out together. But they are inspired by the possibilities of HR. And I by the way, when I say this, I say it very intentionally, because what I mean by that is that when you look at the landscape of HR knowledge and skills, you find a lot of quote unquote experts, gurus talking about, this is the framework for HR of the future. These are the skills for HR of the future. This is the operational model for HR of the future. And all I think about is like, all right, but we're missing the most important point is, are we inspired to make change happen in our organizations? Are we inspired from HR to create better workplaces? Not just you, quote unquote, expert writing about this, but are we all in HR inspired? And that to me is the missing piece in HR. I feel that we put so much effort in the technicality of the work that we do that we are missing on what makes the most amount of change, which is us believing that we are leaders capable of transforming our workplaces for the best. And then we figured out how we're going to do it, right? But if you have the tools, but you don't know how to use them, or you're not inspired to use them, they mean nothing. That's at the end of the day what happens. Those tools mean nothing. But if you're inspired and you say, you know what, I think that with the work that we do in HR, we can truly create better workplaces. We can truly create a better societies, better world. And now that I believe that, I am going to get on the bandwagon to learn how to make it happen. That to me is the sequence. And what we are going to be talking about, I am hoping that it's a little bit in that sequence, meaning the inspiration for HR to be the innovator or the facilitator of innovation in the organization. And then we go to the questions of how we do it. And when we don't know how to do it, what we would tell people is, you just have to figure it out. Talk to your people, listen to them, ask questions and figure it out. You don't have to have all the answers from the beginning. Now, you have to be inspired, though, to make this happen. And that, to me, is sort of the foundation of that panel that we're going to have, but also the foundation of what I actually do with the community of Hacking HR, which is, let's inspire HR people. Let's just give them some nuggets, some insights to inspire them. They like all of us, we're figuring it out. But it's about that inspiration to begin with. That, to me, is the beginning of the journey. And that's what I'm not seeing much in HR, by the way. And to me, it's concerning because I see all these models popping up every day. Oh, McKinsey, these are the skills for HR, Deloitte, these are the frameworks for HR, Ulrich or Bersin, all the other. I'm like, yeah, all right, good for you guys, they keep doing all this work, but that's not going to make a difference. And it didn't make a difference, by the way. HR changed by the sheer force of the circumstances and not because of those operational models. We changed a lot in the past 3 years alone, not because of all those models. We changed because the pandemic forced us to change. The pandemic inspired us to say, we can do better and we are going to do better. I'm going to figure it out, right? I'm going to figure out how to do it. And that, to me, is the right sequence. Operational models come after that inspiration that you need to embrace in order to make change happen and innovate in your organizations.
Imagine how fast we could solve the world's biggest problems if more SaaS startups would gain traction sooner. Welcome to the Tech Entrepreneur on a Mission podcast. This podcast is dedicated to sharing experiences from B2B SaaS CEOs who are going above and beyond to deliver change that is noticed. You will hear their secrets and learn what is required to build a SaaS business that the world starts talking about and keeps talking about, and how to overcome the roadblocks to do so.
Awesome. When you think about going to work human, who do you want to see? Who are you excited that's on the agenda, that's on the lineup?
I think everybody, I think I am.
No, you have to say one or two folks, Enrique. Don't be general. I want a name. I want a name from you.
Yeah, well, Esther Perel, she's going to be there.
Oh,
and this is why she excites me and everybody, but especially those who are not in HR. They excite me because they will help me think outside of my little cocoon of HR. And what I will do after I learn from them is, when I hear from Esther, I'm going to say, all right, she shared all of this information. And there are a couple of insights in there that I know can have an effect in HR and at work. That's why she's invited, but she's not in HR, right? So when I hear those two insights, what I'm going to try to do the day after or days or weeks after is connect what she said with what I do and try to create more value than if I hadn't heard or listened or learned from her. So I am excited about everybody, especially those panelists. I don't have all the names, of course, in my mind, but especially all the panelists and all the speakers who are not in HR. Nothing against HR, by the way, but this is the world in which I am. And every day I'm learning something about HR, but I like to be stretched out of my cocoon and my portfolio, right, of knowledge and activities and ideas. And the likes of Esther Perel, they are the ones that, for the most part, in me, they create that level of, whoa, look at that thing outside of my world that I can connect with my world and create something more beautiful than if I hadn't done or learned that one thing before.
Yeah, I love that. And I think Esther Perel, she's always a favorite of mine. I've seen her speak a few times now.
Yeah.
She's done the Culture Amp conference as well. And I feel like she was at Work Human in the last year or two, but I can't remember when. So is this your first time going to Work Human?
It is my first time going to Work Human. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, I mean, I know about the event, and I know a lot of the folks that always speak at the, not always, but that they are generally invited to speak at the event. Mm-hmm. But it's my first time going there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You'll love it. Like we talk about how some of the cool things that they do and just some of the stuff that Jackye and I appreciate, and we've talked about this with some of the other folks that we've talked to about the conference, is they have local artists come in and share their art, so last year they did a whole mural that a local artist in Nashville was able, not Nashville. Where were we? Atlanta. Yes. Okay. I'm like, wait a minute. It wasn't Nashville. That was weird.
It was Atlanta. Yeah.
Atlanta. And then also some local artists that had T-shirts and other things. So it's just a whole experience.
Yeah.
And it's such a good, I won't say love fest, because that's weird, but it is totally a thank you to HR folks. And it is, to your point, bringing in people that have nothing to do with HR, that just come with great ideas, innovative ideas that are hey, have you all thought about this? When you're talking about people, it's the people pieces that I think sometimes we forget about. And that day-to-day grind, as you mentioned, about, heads down, going to from meeting to meeting. How are you actually bringing some of that stuff into play?
And they have, they are bringing, I can't remember his name, the CEO of Pixar. Mm-hmm. And I just can't remember his name right now. And it's talking about people who are outside of HR, and particularly the panel that I'm going to be speaking at, the innovation panel. We're talking about one of the most creative and innovative companies in the world, with all the things that that can be better, blah blah blah. But this company truly cares for creativity, for innovation, and it's exciting to hear somebody tell us about how they go through that process. And I am hoping that his name, I think is Ed, or
Ed Catmull, Dr. Ed Catmull.
Yeah, Ed. I'm hoping that he talks about how you do that, especially if you have to do it in an environment of a lot of constraints, meaning how you remain creative, innovative, how do you take risks, how do you experiment with new ideas, how do you manage failure when you are in an environment of economic uncertainty, when you are in an environment of highly politicized, literally everything, and polarization. How do you put across, a message where, if you have the freaking Little Mermaid, in black, it's a problem, and how do you do those kinds of things, right? And that, to me, that message will, I'm hoping, resonate a lot with HR, because we have to maneuver the ins and outs of that kind of environment. So I'm super excited about that session as well. And thank you for letting me know that his name was Ed. Yeah.
But I think you're right. And I'm really excited about that too, because there are some ways. And when you think about it, when Pixar came on the scene, it was completely different than anything you've ever seen. And even though everyone thought they knew what animation looked like, and we can tell what's good or what's bad, right? Even though we have no idea how it how it works. But it was completely different than anything anybody's ever seen, and continued on that path. And so you have to imagine there's a lot of people saying no, right? Because it's not in the book of how you're supposed to do it. And I think that's kind of what you're speaking to within HR, is that we still look at, if you have your, SHRM certifications and you have all of those little pieces, when you're doing your research and you're studying human resources, you're still going back to like learning from the 1970s or before. And that's why we do this thing, because we decided to start doing that in 1982. And we've been doing it that way forever. And how are you supposed to do it? If you don't say like you do it in 1982, you can't get your certification. So you must know nothing about human resources.
Don't get me started on certifications, by the way. So I don't think you want to go down that rabbit hole. But I think there's when I started my career, I'm an electronic engineer. So I started as an engineer and then I moved to HR. And there's something that not all engineers have, but I think it's part of like a core foundation of this profession, the profession of engineering, which is there's sort of a drive to learn and to be updated with new things. And when I moved to HR, it was really shocking for me not to find that drive, right? Mm-hmm. To be content and to conform with learning from something that had been in place since 1970. And one of those things was when I first read the books from SHRM, which, by the way, I read the first one and I said, I'm not going to use the word actually. But I said, forget about this, man. I'm not spending any second of my life in this thing, because what I'm reading is, number one, something that I can Google in seconds. So I don't need a test that costs $500 to do this. And number two, what I was reading about was things that we talked about, in the 70s, in the 80s. And to me, the analogy was, in engineering, if I was still using the concepts and the technology of the 1970s, I wouldn't be working on a computer. I would be working on a typewriter right now. And that was really shocking to me. So I found there's a lack of, I'm not saying that this is general for everybody in HR, but I found that to be very common, that lack of drive to learn new things. But the flip side of that was that the organizations that had been tasked or that we trusted, quote unquote, trusted to foster the innovation and the creativity and the drive in HR to learn things that were different, more creative and innovative. They were doing the same, like the SHRMs of the world. They were doing the same things in the same ways that everybody, was doing it in the 1970s or 1980s. And I'm like, I'm not even going to look into these organizations because they are not what I think we should be doing. And that was shocking. And that's, actually when I created Hacking HR at the end of 2017, even the name, some people were asking me, why Hacking HR, right? Because they have never heard such a thing, in connection with HR. And there's another community, the Disrupt HR community, which I remember people, we started like a few years difference. They are like 2014 or 15, I don't remember. But even when they started, I remember people telling them like, disrupt HR, what's that about? Why disrupt? What needs to be disrupted in HR if what we're doing is right? So once again, I go back to this idea of inspiration. It all leads me back to inspiration. You can read these certification books, which are, by the way, the same old stuff than you would have read decades ago. And that's not going to make you a better HR professional. That's, to me, the bottom line. Somebody asked me recently, whom I met in person, by the way, here in Flagstaff, which is kind of rare because it's a very small town. But I met with this person and she said to me, well, I have limited amount of money and limited amount of time to invest in a certification. Should I take the SHRM certification? And I said, no. You go and take an agility certification. You go and take a design thinking certification. You go and take a digital transformation certification. You go and spend that money in a course about ChatGPT. You go to learn about things that it's not that they are newer, it's that they are stretching you out of your comfort zone of HR, and they will make you better in HR. Even if those are not the things that you end up doing, they will make you better as an HR professional. Reading a book about the things that you already know, that's not going to move the needle forward. So I said that I wasn't going to say anything about this, and I ended up saying something about this. But I just can't miss the opportunity, to encourage people to say, not to ditch the old, because I believe in like tribes, like ancient tribes, they, the people who would go out to hunt or to fish or to collect the vegetables. They were the most able, stronger people in the community, but they would always sit at night listening to the elders about the stories and how they did things. That's a little bit about what we should be doing here, right? Listen to the elder concepts, right? Meaning, check out those books and listen and learn about how we did things in the past so that we don't repeat the same mistakes, but you got to embrace the new. You have to embrace the new.
Absolutely. And I think in this time of constant change, like your example is great, that if you're not that the godfathers of, the Dave Ulrichs and the, Josh Bernstein, all of those folks, they have great stuff that they're doing and they have done for this community. But if you're only focused on that, you're totally stepping back into that more administrative and less strategic, less innovative space. And that's unfortunate. And I think there is just so much. I myself am a PHR certified person, but it was very similar to, what you're saying. It was, okay, I need that piece of paper because the job required that I did. But I remember, and I'm sure anyone that's taken the test recently remembers, it's what's the best answer of the 4 answers? And that's the other part that always made me just bananas. It's like, they're literally telling you they're trying to trick you during the test. And so it's, how do you actually get this stuff memorized, like memorizing the states and the capitals? And are you really going to retain that stuff later on? Probably not. And is it stuff you want to or need to retain? Probably not. So, okay.
And there's a thing in there, which is memorizing the best out of 4 answers for something that never happens like that in real life.
Right. Right.
And I tell people, just tell me, when has any of that become reality for you in your workplace? Because humans are complex. We are difficult people. So never will you come across somebody coming to your office and saying, I have this problem and these are the 4 answers. Please select the answer that, applies the most here. And that's what I'm going to do. That never happens that way. And, what ends up happening with the elders and, the grandfathers and the, and blah, 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 is that they have never stepped in HR ever in their lives. They have never spent a day in the life of an HR person. And that to me is a big problem, because we are being led by folks that all they do is they ask questions in surveys. They put those questions and collect those questions in beautiful reports that, they look very nice and they have these platitudes and these new concepts. But then when we think about them vis-a-vis what really happens in the workplace, you're like, wait a second here. It's a gigantic gap between saying you have to be more strategic to really be more strategic. Yes, I love being more strategic, but then you go to a workplace where you have only one HR person for a, 1,000 person company. And these poor people are, burned out just by the transaction. So we're even asking them to be more strategic on top of something that doesn't even allow them for anything else. So, if for anybody listening to this out there, I'm not against, I'm not creating a case against the elders here or the grandfathers or the SHRM certification. But what I'm saying is, make sure that you're spending your time where your limited amount of time, your limited amount of money on what truly makes you stand out as an HR professional who is thinking about transforming organizations. And that to me is not a SHRM certification, by the way. So you take this with a grain of salt, of course, but you see what makes sense for you at the end of the day. Yeah. No,
and I think that's the other reason why WorkHuman is as good as it is, because it isn't here's a case study that so-and-so did. It's here's real life, what it's truly like to be an HR team of one, or what it's really like when you are in that day-to-day grind. How do you start to innovate to drive the right things, or to try to limit that transactional piece so you can step into the role of really being that advisor to the leadership team, have a seat at the table, whatever you want, however you want to describe that, which I think is so critical. But Enrique, thank you. We will see you. It's 3 weeks, right?
No, it is. I think it's something like 2 weeks from now. Yeah, we are already in April.
Yes. So we will see you in 2 weeks. And again, for those folks who are attending WorkHuman, we highly encourage you to join Enrique's panel. It will be amazing. I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us for a little bit.
Thank you both for inviting me. This was an exciting conversation. Thank you. And I hope to see everybody at WorkHuman Live. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. This is Katie Van Horn.
And this is Jackye Clayton.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
The average person experiences up to 10,000 marketing efforts each day. Those ideas are culled from millions of possibilities. The CMO Confidential podcast takes you behind the scenes to learn about the decisions, drama, politics, and glory that go with one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite, the Chief Marketing Officer. Guests from all over the business world join Mike Linton, a 5-time CMO, to share stories about what it's really like in the marketing universe.